All right.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Hi, Ariel.
Hi, Eliot.
Hi, good to see you.
So good to
I'm
see
so
you.
excited that you're here to talk with me because I am like a proud grandpa about bonobos. I will tell everyone about them. And you are the executive director of Friends of Bonobos, the charity that ran the sanctuary where my whole journey towards writing this book began. So today we're going to we're going to share the book, but we're also going to talk about bonobo conservation and how the sanctuary works. And our goal is ours to provide information into bonobo research, sanctuary care, and rewilding initiatives. And we'll be answering some questions that were submitted from schools and supporters of Friends of Bonobos. And as you'll see in the banner below, you can subscribe to the Friends of Bonobos newsletters to get updates on the organization's work and a chance to win a copy of Lulu and the Others, which we'll be reading from. And Ariel, I'll turn it over to you to do a brief introduction if you're willing. First of all, where are you? It's beautiful.
Okay. Yes, I'm in New Zealand, just on the tail end of a vacation. And it's beautiful, as you can see, and also it's quite loud. So if you hear like a squeaky sound, that's the bugs. I'm in a semi-tropical, actually a jungle area here. So it's beautiful and a bit loud. So excuse the sound, but it's worth it. So thanks, Eliot. I'm so excited to be here with you, and I want to take a moment to tell everyone watching a little bit more about you for those who don't already know you. Eliot is an extraordinary author, researcher, and an incredible advocate for bonobos. He's a New York Times bestselling author of many books for teens and kids, including The Darkness Outside Us and its sequel, The Brightness Between Us, as well as Charming Young Man, Endangered, which is also about bonobos, and Queer Ducks, which is a nonfiction book, which has quite a lovely section about bonobos in it. And if you haven't seen it already, I recommend everyone watching go check out the segment from The Daily Show where Trevor Noah interviews Eliot. It's an awesome segment, very funny. And you did great, Eliot. I would have been so nervous to be on The Daily Show, but in any case, it was great. Eliot's books have twice been named finalist for the National Book Award for Young People's Literature and have garnered a Printz Honor, a Stonewall Honor, and the Green Earth Book Award. And he's also on the faculty of the Creating Writing MFA program at Hamline University and lives with his husband in New York City. So today we're going to get to have a live reading of Eliot's latest book, which just came out on Tuesday, Lulu and the Others. So it is on sale today, and you can get it in all kinds of places. It's published by Clarion Books, an imprint of HarperCollins Children's Books. And it's a sweet, poignant story about family and belonging. It's inspired by a true story of a bonobo raised by a human family and later returned to the wild, and is illustrated by New York Times bestselling artist A.G. Ford, whom some of you may be familiar with if you've read the Construction Site series. So we're going to learn more about Eliot's inspiration for the book and after he does his reading, and I'll just let you know a little bit more about me, and then we'll learn more about what we do and bonobos after the reading as well. So I am the CEO of Friends of Bonobos, and we work in conjunction with Friends of Bonobos Congo, who rescue and rehabilitate orphan bonobos and operate the world's only bonobo sanctuary, and are also responsible for the only rewilding program for bonobos in the world. If you're just learning about bonobos, they're a lot like chimps, but in the sense that we are as closely related to bonobos as we are to chimps. We share 98.7% of our DNA with them. But unlike chimps, there we go. Oh yeah, we've got our shirts on. Unlike chimpanzees and all other great apes, of which humans are one, bonobos don't kill each other. So they are known for that. They're known for being peaceful. They're cooperative. They're welcoming to strangers. They only live in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and they're endangered, and they could go extinct in our lifetime, which is where we come in and our supporters come in. We're on a mission to stop that from happening. So thank you all for coming. Let's get to the good stuff. Now you're in for a real treat. Eliot is going to read his book to us.
That's the best thing about a picture book, is that we can actually read the whole thing together, and we'll have the images up on screen. Yeah, when I actually, this came out of my research. I visited Lola ya Bonobo outside of Kinshasa back in 2010 when I was researching a young adult novel called Endangered. And I spent about 10 days at the sanctuary meeting the bonobos and meeting the various people that worked there. And I was immediately inspired by what bonobos represent about our origins. That, as Ariel pointed out, we have chimpanzees and bonobos are basically tied, depending on who's doing the math, as our closest relatives. And chimps have this really violent culture, and bonobos are this much more peace-loving, matriarchal culture, which matriarchal means it's female-led and female-dominant, and everyone benefits, including the males. Like, guys, we should all want to live in a bonobo society, because the male bonobos are treasured like little princes. But one of the bonobos I met, they all came to the sanctuary through different life journeys, some of which we had a lot of information on, some of which we didn't. But one of the bonobos I met had been raised in a human home for many, many years. She was bought in a marketplace, brought home as a pet, and we'll talk later about why that's not a good idea, even though it might seem it at first. And that she's brought home as a pet, and then they raised alongside their human daughter. She would go and get herself food out of the fridge. She would read magazines. She would flip through and look at the art. And then when the human daughter went off to college, they gave the bonobo to the sanctuary at Lola. But she didn't know she was a bonobo. She spent 2 weeks by the fence with her hand out in the consolation gesture, which is trying to get comfort from humans, because she did not know she was an ape. She was an infant when she was with her family in the jungle and they were killed. And she'd only been around human beings. And so she wanted out of there. She wanted back with us. But she came around to her status as a bonobo and eventually became the matriarch of the group, like the queen. And I think it might be part of her human origins that gave her the ability to kind of know best what the bonobos need in the sanctuary. So that Lulu and the others came out of that work. And it just seemed right to write this for kids, young kids, because there's that experience you have when you are going to school the first time, where you come to know your family and who you are there. And all of a sudden you're around these crazy other kids, and you're like, oh my gosh, who am I here? And it can be really horrifying. I cried the first day of school, because I was like, oh wait, I thought I had it all figured out, and it turns out I don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So Lulu is kind of looking at that, and it seemed just right for first, second, third graders, and all of us adults experience this all the time as well, this feeling of being out of place. So with no further ado, why don't I read the book, and then we can talk about it a little bit, Ariel, and talk more about what the Friends of Bonobos does.
Sounds great.
I think it's going to magically appear on the screen.
Yes, there it is.
Yay.
Ta-da.
Lulu and the Others. This is illustrated by A.G. Ford, who is an absolutely amazing illustrator, and I am so lucky to have gotten paired up with him. You will know him from the Goodnight Construction Site series. Here we go. Lulu was a bonobo, and she liked to do bonobo things. She swung on branches. She rubbed her belly against her sister's. She picked bugs out of her father's hair and ate them. The green ones were delicious. Lulu also liked to do human things. She wore a yellow shirt. She carried a mug shaped like a banana. She had a toothbrush and a favorite comic book. It was called The Jungle Bunch. It had the best colors. In the house where she lived, Lulu slept in her very own bed, in her very own bedroom. She played hopscotch with her sister. She used the family toilet. She got herself sodas from the fridge, lots of sodas. Lulu never went to school. Her sister taught her the important things, like how to say what she wanted using signs. Sunny day, walk. More hugs, please. Help open soda? But her sister did have to go to school, and her parents had to go to work. Lulu was left by herself all day with no one to play with. Every time they came in the front door, her family showered her with kisses and hugs. They rubbed their bellies against hers and brought her the latest issues of her favorite comics. But sometimes, even a new issue of The Jungle Bunch isn't enough. Lulu's parents saw how lonely she was. They knew they had to do something. Mother and father and sister and Lulu all took a long boat trip to a jungle island. Here were creatures with black hair all over their bodies, like Lulu. They shrieked and hooted, like Lulu. They loved to rub their bellies against one another, like Lulu. But Lulu wasn't like them, right? What? She was supposed to play with these hairy, smelly apes? Ew, they didn't even have comic books. Mother and father and sister stayed close in their canoe. At first, Lulu sat right at the edge of the island so she could see them and so she could hold their hands. The other bonobos were curious about this new bonobo who didn't know she was a bonobo. They brought her fresh reeds to eat, chunks of wood swarming with tasty ants, and the sweetest fruits that grew closest to the sun. Lulu had to admit that the fruits were delicious, and ants were fun to fish out of wood, even if they tasted too spicy. The bonobos had their own rules for hopscotch and showed her new games like run, run, there are bees, and let's go scratch his armpits. Lulu tried to sign to them, but they didn't understand her, so she taught them all the best signs. Help old mama nest. Hurt sticks, hurt sticks. Lulu glided through the treetops, arm over arm and foot over foot. When she decided which bush to visit, everyone also wanted to be there too. She had become the leader of the bonobos. Lulu still loved her human family, but when they went back in the house to their house, she decided she wanted to stay on the island. Whenever mother and father and sister visited, Lulu brought over her friends to greet them. At first, the bonobos shrieked at the humans, but Lulu was calm, and the others learned how to be calm from her. One morning, there was a big noise. A strange boat was arriving. The bonobos scattered grins of fear on their faces, but Lulu came down to the beach once she saw who the humans had brought. It was a new little bonobo. He was wearing a purple shirt. He carried a mug shaped like an apple. He had a toothbrush and a checkers set. Lulu lay down to make herself look small. She held out open palms of friendship. He cried at the edge of the island. He held his hand out to the humans, begging them to take him home. The other bonobos shrieked and threw leaves at the stranger. But Lulu didn't. She held the little bonobo's foot. She knew how he felt. He didn't realize he was a bonobo. Once, Lulu hadn't known who she was either. Lulu sat next to the crying ape for a long time. She groomed away the termites crawling on his hair. She gave him a sun-ripe palm fruit. She set up his checkerboard and waited for him to make the first move. The other bonobos came over to say hello. There was a new member of the family. And we won't read the author's note together, but it's about the experience at the sanctuary, which we're going to talk about instead.
Yay. Thank you, Eliot. That was so amazing. I am just so in love with this book, and I'm sure everyone else who reads it will be as well. I think, first of all, the story of bonobos being kept as pets and then having the opportunity to return to a group of bonobos, which is what we do at the sanctuary, at Lola Bonobo Sanctuary, which is, where the bonobo that inspired you ended up, is something that happens more often than I think people realize. And a lot of that has to do with bonobos themselves and their behavior and the way they operate in the world. So can you give our audience a little more context about what it is about bonobos that makes them more likely to become a pet?
Yeah. In my experience, I think our relationship to bonobos says as much about us and what we want as what bonobos want and what bonobos need. And when I first discovered them, maybe we'll talk later about how I came across the topic because it was kind of out of nowhere. But when I first discovered them, I just Googled bonobos on YouTube, and how you can lose an afternoon to YouTube videos. I just looked at bonobo videos and I was like, these are so cool. There's there's a bonobo at a Great Ape Language Institute who makes spaghetti. Like she'll boil water and like put spaghetti in, pan Benicia. And then there's another bonobo who plays Pac-Man, the video game Pac-Man, like uses the joystick, avoids the ghost, like hits the pellet and goes after the ghost. Like he's not good at Pac-Man, but it's a non-human playing Pac-Man. And I was just like, this is so cool. And so I could see why someone meeting a bonobo, I've got actually some pictures of sanctuary surrogate moms and their bonobos
here.
There
you go. Oh,
someone meeting a bonobo would like, I want that. And that's a human instinct, right? To like want to have the thing that you think is so cool, right? That I want to possess it. Yeah. But that is an absolute tragic story for the apes themselves, because they are really cute as infants, but the only way you get a bonobo infant is by killing its family in the jungle. No bonobo mother will give up her child. So the terrible backstory behind these animals is something that we have to keep front of mind when we think about bonobos. And there's also, they're really kind of docile and gentle when they're little, but these are really strong animals that are 3 times stronger than people. And so I think a lot of families, think they get a smuggled bonobo out of Congo, or families within Congo will own them, and they have this cute thing for a year, and then they have to chain the bonobo up or put them in a small cage, and so it's just a tragic outcome for the apes. And so this is a case of like, let's love and admire and adore them, but let them live the lives they're meant to live, which is why I love the work that Lola Ya Bonobo does so much, and what Friends of Bonobos does so much, because you are invested in making sure, as best we can, we take these infants, give them a good chance at life, and if we can, get them back out into the wild, which is such important work. And it's undoing this sort of human instinct that we all have, but that leads to harm in the case of these apes. So I was wondering if we could, can you outline like what the mission of Friends of Bonobos is, and just give a little overview of the sanctuary care and the work that happens here? And
sure.
I told you as a proud grandpa, I'll just show some occasional bonobo pictures from the sanctuary.
I love it. That's awesome. I love that you have that. Thank you.
Low tech here.
Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, as you were saying, like the reason that baby bonobos become available to people as pets has a tragic reason. The reason behind that is tragic, and the reason behind that is primarily poaching. So people will go into the forest and kill bonobos. They kill the adults, and then they'll take the children and try to make some extra money off the children or the babies by selling them as pets. The killing of bonobos, I think it's fair. I think it's important to say that the reason behind that is primarily extreme poverty. People are mostly killing. Most of the reasons that these animals are killed in the wild is for food, not just bonobos, all kinds of animals being killed in the wild, other endangered animals as well. It's mostly for food and and so people can take the meat to market and make some money for their families. So the underlying cause is extreme poverty in an area that for which that's pretty rife and a big issue. What we do is we do a lot of education and awareness in the areas where there's poaching is rather high, or at least where there's known poaching. Particularly, there's a lot of information in the Congo about poaching routes, like where people go to get the animals back and forth. So we do a lot of education in those areas, and that's been really fruitful over the last 20 years of doing that. So now we get a lot. What happens is people in the wild, people in these communities find out there's a baby bonobo being carried on a motorbike with some other materials that have come out of the forest, and they let us know. And then our team, the ABC team, the Friends of Bonobos team in the Congo, goes works with the government to get those babies into the sanctuary. They come to Lulu Ya Bonobo Sanctuary. It's about 100-acre sanctuary. That's our founder, Claudine Andre, with a baby bonobo that had come in. And once they're at the sanctuary, then they are rehabilitated. Often they're sick, they're hurt, they're injured, they're dehydrated, all of these things. They're certainly grieving. Bonobos they grieve, they're sad, they've lost their families. And at that point, we pair them with a surrogate mom, like as in the picture. and they stay and they bond with the surrogate mother, and they, for as long as possible, usually it's a 6-week to 3-month period where they are only with that one surrogate mother, and then they can go into the nursery where they get to play with all the other babies, and eventually they go into the enclosures that are huge forested enclosures, and then eventually, for the lucky ones, they are rewilded back to our community reserve at Ikolo ya Bonobo, which is well into the jungle of the rainforest, in the Congo rainforest. So that's sort of the cycle. It's we rescue, we rehabilitate, we rewild. But on top of that, we do a lot of community advocacy, community initiatives to help anti-poverty initiatives in the areas where we are rewilding the bonobos. And we do lots and lots of education and awareness about bonobos in general. I mean, conservation in general and bonobos in particular.
Amazing. Yeah.
So you had mentioned that you were going to say something about this, and so I want to hear more about it. But like, how did you learn about bonobos to begin with, and what was your inspiration behind the book? Well, you talked about it a little, but tell us more.
Yeah, no, I wish I could say I was, sort of doing my research at the Natural History Museum and found this amazing ape, but instead, you know how like you can wind up online and you buy something because it's advertised to you and you forget you ordered it. And yeah. I got a pair of pants that were Bonobo's brand.
Oh yeah.
Way back. Yeah. And they came, and I just thought I thought they had put nonsense symbols together. Like I knew about gorillas, I knew about orangutans, I knew about chimpanzees. I had never heard of a bonobo. And so I Googled them. Which is pretty common. Yeah. Yeah, it's like the forgotten ape. That's the big book about bonobos by Frans de Waal. It's called The Forgotten Ape, I think, for that reason.
Yeah.
And so I Googled them, and I discovered this animal that I had never heard of and wished I had because of all that it represents. And so I read Vanessa Wood's book about her experience at Lolea Bonobo at the sanctuary. She's a primatologist in North Carolina, and with her husband, Brian Hare, I guess. And I read her book about her experiences there and got really emotionally invested. And I think for me as a writer, I sort of pay attention to the times when I feel a really deep feeling, because I'm sort of like a more thinky person. Like I tend to like think about ideas, but like don't necessarily have these like huge feelings. It's but I cried reading that book, and I ended up adopting a bonobo at the sanctuary. His name was Boyoma, and so like I would send money every month to take care of him, and became very invested, and that's why I wound up writing Endangered, which was about a girl and a bonobo surviving wartime in Congo. It's a young adult novel. So it was a circuitous journey, came out of left field. And it's something when I talk to young people, I often tell them, when you're looking forward at your life, you should have plans about what you want to do and work to make them happen, but also be aware of what surprises you along the way and what feelings surprise you, and look into those. And like life can take unexpected paths, and mine certainly did. It changed. I had not written about animals and conservation before them, and now it is like my passion. I just got a master's in animal studies, mainly because of this, looking into our non-human relatives and what bonds us with the natural world. It's become very important to me.
That's incredible. And you have a whole series on great apes, right? You have the whole
the quartet. Yeah,
the series.
Yeah, 4 books about great apes. We called it the Great Ape Quartet, sort of internally, but that sounds a bit like a barbershop quartet made of great apes. But it's not. They aren't singing. It's about 4 books, but individual stories, but each featuring a different great ape. So the bonobos were the first one with Endangered. I was wondering if you could tell. So like, what's like on the ground? Like, what is like an orphan's journey through the sanctuary? Like what? How does it start, and what happens when they're there? And like, what have you noticed through your work about the process that these young bonobos go through?
Yeah. So when they first arrive at the sanctuary, as I mentioned earlier, they're usually not in great shape, right? They've often been, sometimes tied up. They're not being fed properly. That's a picture of a bonobo after it's, gotten a lot of care.
Yeah,
right?
I'm not going to show them.
No, we're not going to show you the before photos because it's not right for live. But yeah, they are, they tend to be in pretty bad shape. And honestly, when Claudine and Andre first started the sanctuary, I think only maybe a third of them survived. And what she learned early on was that they could not survive unless they had love. So one of the biggest differences between bonobos and all other great apes is all other great apes, again, humans included, can survive physically just by physical sustenance. If we have food and water, we can survive. Bonobos will not survive without love. So what they realized was that the ones that were surviving were the ones that had somehow latched on to one of the caregivers and had gotten that caregiver to give them a lot of emotional care. And the other ones were the ones that kind of were either too sick to do that or didn't know how to do that. And they realized that if they provided that to all of the bonobos, the only ones that didn't survive after that were the ones whose injuries or illnesses, or, if they were so dehydrated, they couldn't get them back. There was the only reason they died after that was physical. But prior to that, they would die literally from grief. And I think that says a lot about how bonobos operate. And I could go in, I won't because we don't have time, but I could go into a whole theory around the fact that which bonobos survive, the ones that have had love and support and care. And what would it look like if if you look at the human population and said, if the only humans that were alive were ones that had love and support and care as young beings, what would our society look like? And I bet it would look pretty different.
You look at the story of every bully in human society, and you find someone that there is this wound somewhere early on of feeling overlooked and unloved, and look how it plays out with us too.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's this way in which they come in, and so once they figured that out, then it became very clear. They pair them with one surrogate mom. They bond with that surrogate mom. They spend all of their time with them and they hold them. I mean, it is it's not unlike when people have a baby, when humans have a baby, we have a baby. And when you have that, you hold that baby all the time, and the more skin to skin contact you have, and the more physical contact that you have with your baby, the healthier they are physically, and the happier they are. And it's the same, only with bonobos, they literally can't survive without that. So once they figured that out, that became the norm, and that's what they do. And after they've spent that time with the mom, or mostly with the mom, obviously they get veterinary care and the moms need to take breaks and things, but primarily one caregiver. Then they go into the nursery, and then once they're in the nursery, then they're playing with all the other baby bonobos, and they usually live there all the way up until they're 7, 8, 9 years old. That sort of depends on the bonobo. It also depends on the space. Sometimes we've had to put a couple of bonobos into the larger enclosures just because we had too many babies come in. We didn't have the space. But we'll put them in groups usually, and then they'll go into the big enclosures, which again, like I said, we have 100 acres. About half of that is enclosed for the bonobos, where they live in 3 groups. But that transition from coming in, usually quite ill, or in the case, actually, in the case of your book, because there have been quite a few bonobos that have come in that were pets. They often were in good shape, right? But as you said, they didn't know how to be a bonobo. So they learned that through being in the nursery and then going into the enclosures. And then they all learn, and they all are very happy once they get used to it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I fully answered your question, but.
Yeah, you absolutely did. And I think those apes are I think they're, my experience in my brief time staying at the sanctuary, they're kind of a charismatic center for the group of bonobos, but their destiny isn't necessarily to be released in the wild because they spent so long with humans. It's very hard for them to fully adapt, but they have, they become this sort of social core, and they produce the healthiness and the other bonobos that do get released and come out there. So there's a way in which they're kind of mentors, they're sort of sanctuary mentors in my experience, the ones that I met who had that early origin.
Which makes a lot of sense, because they come in and the first thing they do is interact with humans. And so they know how to interact, and they know they know how to get their needs met. And then they can go, once they go into the enclosures and they can, be more bonobo, then they have the best of both worlds.
and how to be
I can
calm
tell you
in
a
this
story of,
extraordinary situation. Yeah.
yeah, I can tell you a good story if you want me to, of a
Yeah.
bonobo that did not grow up in the best, didn't grow, okay, I'm just gonna tell the story. So there's this bonobo named Kipolo. He grew up in, with a group of silent monks. He was treated well, and he had a nice life, but literally no one spoke. So he had never heard anyone, no one had ever spoken to him. He'd never heard any sound really, except for natural sounds. Totally silent monastery. So at one point, it was determined that this, they figured out that he should be in a sanctuary and not be with them. And they voluntarily, like some pet owners do, gave him to Lola and the sanctuary. So he came to the sanctuary, and as soon as he got there, he immediately got an infection in one eye, infection in both eyes. It took, and both eyes. So he's basically blind for a month. And then one eye cleared up, and then the other eye eventually cleared up. But the point is, he came in, he hadn't heard a sound, hadn't heard anybody speak. Now, all these bonobo sounds are all around him, and he can't see anything. So he was like, obviously, I'm sure this was pretty traumatic and very scary. And he now lives in his own little enclosure. Like, he has a lot of space. It used to be the space where bonobos would go if they were injured and they needed to be separated while they got better. Anyway, he has a couple of bonobo friends that hop over the fence to visit him regularly.
There's always the few that hop the fences.
Yeah. And they just go visit him, and they play around, and then they go back, because he's kind of like, he doesn't want to have too many people around him. Bonobos around him. He needs his space. And he's a good example of like having lived in a human environment where maybe he wasn't socialized. Unlike the pet bonobos that were loved and cared for and socialized in this human environment, he was actually not socialized in that way, and therefore he hasn't done particularly well. And he's a male, so that because bonobos are matriarchal, he's not going to have, he's lower on the totem pole. But yeah. But anyway, he's doing fine, but he'll never be able to be returned to the wild.
I'm so grateful for the update, because I actually met Kipolo back in 2010 when I was at the sanctuary. Yeah. And I remember he had a very cloudy eye, and there was a picture of him he had brought to the optometrist in Kinshasa, the human optometrist, like him in a chair, like sedated, but like it just looked like a person going to get their eyes taken care of. But this was an ape. It was the most sort of stunning picture to look at. I'm so glad he's doing well.
So that would have been when he first got there.
Yeah, it must have been early on. Yeah. It was many years ago at this point, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
One of the things when I was down at the sanctuary, I visited some people that lived and worked in conservation in downtown Kinshasa. And they talked about the sanctuary, both they were happy that for its conservation purposes, but also as a very productive economic nucleus for Kinshasa, that it was like a place where money didn't get stolen away by politicians who were going to use it for their own purposes, but instead employed so many people. It was a really important part of the economy, the local economy. And I think that was really striking to me, that for every one bonobo at the sanctuary, there's any number of humans that are making the food, taking care of the facilities, working on security, that it's the money that's given to help the apes is helping them, but it's also really helping people that want jobs and want to work and are finding a really great source of employment at the sanctuary. And for me, that's just one example of a community partnership. But I'm wondering, how do you navigate this sanctuary for bonobos within a larger human world and work with communities that are around them?
Yeah, I mean, there's the work at the sanctuary itself, right? Which is, we employ, ABC employs, I think we currently are around 150 employees in the Congo, and most of whom work at Lola Yabonobo Sanctuary. We also have some community initiatives around the sanctuary, such as we have a big swath of farmland that we let the local communities around Lola farm, and in return for free farming, we ask them to produce specific foods, which we then pay them for to feed the bonobos, like things they might not otherwise do, like specific types of cucumbers that the bonobos really love, and things like that. And and they've all been trained on, crop rotation and all that kind of thing. So that's been a really great initiative immediately around the sanctuary. So on top of the, economic, and on top of just having jobs for people that live there, we've also have some other economic initiatives around the sanctuary. And then we also do a lot of community development around the area where we rewild the bonobos. So we have 120,000 acres in the middle of the Congo. And we're about to expand that to 250,000 acres. We're months away from that expansion being finalized. It's been about a 4.5-year project. And that means all of the communities that live along the river there are part of that. And they are all, there are many jobs, forest guards, bonobo trackers. We need lots of administrative work. Anyway, there's lots of jobs that are produced as part of that, but we also do a lot of community development in those areas, such as sustainable fishing and farming initiatives and schools. We built a school, and then we expanded on that school, health initiatives, etc. So the point of it is to make conservation appealing, right? We want conservation. First of all, conservation produces jobs. There's a lot of work in conservation. There's a lot that needs to be done. That immediately means that there are jobs in the area. So that's in and of itself a great thing. But we want to work. It also means that there are things that the community maybe used to do in the forest that now they can't do in the forest. So that means we need to also create ways for people to have food and resources that they might otherwise potentially lose out on if they stop using the forest in the ways they used to. So it's complex. But we work with the communities around Lola and Ecolo a lot.
Amazing. We put out a call for questions. We have a huge range of questions as far as the age of the people putting in the questions. So we were working closely with some schools that put some questions forward about bonobos and writing, and also some financial supporters of Friends of Bonobos who have very generously offered questions as well. So for the last part of our conversation, Ariel and I are going to go through some of those questions and see if we can rustle up some answers. But we can start with a question from Mrs. Oster's 4th grade class. Hello, Mrs. Oster's class. The question is, what's it like to live in the jungle? And I'll give a tiny answer to start on that one, which is, I went for the bonobos to the jungle to meet them, but I was so impressed, is the word, by the insects. The insects in Congo put our North American insects to shame. I would just kneel down. Like, ants are a whole different creature in Congo. Like, so you'll be walking down the trail, and all of a sudden, like, everyone else has stopped, and you realize you need to stop too, because you look down and there's just army ants crossing over. And so all the workers are in the middle, streaming really fast, going about their business and getting food. And then there's these soldiers on the edges with their mandibles out, just ready to like chomp down on anything that gets close, whether it's a human, a bonobo, or another insect. So I quickly learned, like, watch where you put your hand at all times when you're in the jungle. What have you noticed about what it's like to live in the jungle?
Yeah, same. I mean, for sure. I also, another thing about the bugs is that they're loud, right? So at night, it's like it's like a cacophony of different like insect sounds. I grew up in the woods of North Carolina, so I'm pretty used to loud crickets. But it even put our loud crickets to shame. So yeah, it's really loud. And obviously for the bonobos that live in the jungle, they live mostly up in the canopy. So they live in nests that they build up in the trees, which I just think is incredible, because they don't have to live up in the trees, but they like to. And so they build these incredible nests way up high in the trees.
They'll like wander for the day and then find a new site and make a new nest in a new place. So they're not necessarily sleeping in the same location each night, which means you don't have any parasites that build up like humans do in the Middle Ages. We would have lice and mice and things. And like, they're in a new bed. They're in a new fresh bed without any problems in it.
Yeah, that's right.
Mrs. Gongora's fourth grade class has a question, Ariel, which is, what would the world be like without bonobos? Which is something, unfortunately, we have to consider these days.
Yeah, I mean, there's the issue of biodiversity in the forest. So in other words, bonobos are also called gardeners of the forest. So they eat all the foliage and all the seeds, and then they poop that out, and it becomes the mulch that creates new life in the forest, right? So there's the forest would itself, where they live, would significantly suffer. They're part of the ecosystem, and it would suffer greatly. But on a sort of like philosophical level, I think one of the things about bonobos the reason I'm so passionate about bonobos is because of what they represent for humanity. Like, we often say things like, human beings can't help the fact that we're violent. We're animals, right? We're look at chimps, look at gorillas. We're just like, we do the same thing as they do. And bonobos offer a completely different way of imagining what humanity could look like and how we could treat each other. They don't kill each other. There's only been one known case of bonobos killing another bonobo, and that was arguably after that bonobo was very, very badly behaved and very violent towards young bonobos. In any case, they are matriarchal, and the females band together in groups to shut down violence when it does happen, typically amongst adolescent males. So the adolescent males learn early that this is not going to be tolerated behavior, and it changes the whole way the group interacts. So I think just from that point of view, if we lost bonobos, we lose our closest relative that shows us that we have another way that we could be as well.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. Yeah, in a way, we're facing a test as a species, humans are, of can we hold ourselves back from spreading and dominating? And bonobos are kind of the test of like whether we can do it. Realize like we don't need to encroach everywhere and build everywhere, that we can leave a wonderful giant parcel of the earth to non-human animals and leave it for them. And I think it's our kind of chimp urge to like dominate and spread and be in control. Yeah. That is like totally. The very thing that's testing whether the bonobos are going to survive into the next century is the part that we need the bonobo example to get better at and stop doing. So exactly. It's a very thorny situation, but I'm inspired by the work going on by Friends of Bonobos, and I want Mrs. Gongora's fourth grade class to know that together we can make sure that there are bonobos for a good long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I think these questions, I have some questions, let's see, that I think I'm going to ask you, Eliot. Let me see what questions I've got. So I've got from Amanda Renberg. I've been wishing for raised bonobo awareness, in particular amongst children, and I'm beyond excited about your book. Do you know what languages it might be translated into? I'm an author and translator from Sweden, and I'd be thrilled to see it published for the Swedish market.
Oh, cool. Well, call me. Yeah. So far, we are here in the English language market, but no translations in play. But I really would hope that A.G. Ford's amazing art could have another language's words next to it and spread the word. But you're absolutely right that children are really a key part of this, because I think I know when I visit schools and talk to kids, this like very natural empathy for non-human life that they show just out of their natures of like just caring for it. And something we train kids not to feel that for the most part. Yeah. To like humans are more important. Humans are if only, but to make sure all humans are okay, and then we can worry about animals. Like we teach them that there's a hierarchy there instead of like caring for all of us at the same time. And I think if we get to kids with the right message, then we don't have to lose that feeling of always being invested in taking care of the non-human world.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a question from one of our board members, Kim Livingstone. Hi, Kim. How and when did you discover bonobos, Eliot?
Wow.
You told us a little bit about it, but maybe is there anything else you can tell us? I'm realizing now you already told us a little bit about it.
Yeah, well, there was the moment where I got my pants and then I found my feelings around the bonobos when I read about them. So that was largely it. But I think I was reading the experiences in Vanessa Wood's book and also in Claudine André's memoir, which I think is maybe only in French. So I just did it in slow going and with my dictionary out, called Une tendresse sauvage. But I was reading the stories of these apes that came to the sanctuary, and they all had such emotional journeys. And I remember there was one bonobo, I forget her name, one of Claudine's earliest bonobos that she took care of at the sanctuary, who had arrived. She had been taken down the river on a boat for sale, and she had a rope tied around her. And she arrived at the sanctuary, and they bathed her and gave her food and gave her a surrogate mother. And they cut off this rope, the stinky old rope that was around her midsection that was causing her some sores. But she held on to it. She didn't want to let it go. It was her one last thing she had, like it was her possession, even though it was the thing that had tied her up.
Right.
It was just that moment. I was just like, there is so much more out there than the stories of people. Like, but sometimes I look at the bookshelf and I'm like, all our books are about humans, which I understand why most of our books would be about humans, because we are humans. But that kind of story it's the emotional arc of a life isn't just a human thing. It's a bonobo thing and our other ape relatives as well. How did you discover bonobos, Ariel?
I discovered bonobos because I have one of my very best friends is Congolese. And so, gosh, I guess maybe 10, 12 years ago now, he asked me to help him with a rainforest project he was doing. And we were actually putting in water wells around this area where we were doing rainforest conservation. And there were bonobos in these areas. So I learned about bonobos as part of that initiative that I was at. So I actually came to it from working in Congo in Congolese rainforest conservation first. And then, but I mean, obviously started hearing about bonobos and basically went down the exact same rabbit hole you did, read Vanessa's book, watched everything I could get my hands on and fell in love because, really, once you learn what bonobos are all about, it's pretty hard not to fall in love with them and what they stand for and what they represent.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think I have another question for you from Greer Gerland. Congratulations. It's exciting to see you write for a new audience. What did this experience teach you that surprised you about the process of writing a picture book?
Oh, thanks, Greer. Hi. There's actually a couple other related questions. Maybe I'll answer them all at once about the making of the book, which Tara Baker also wondered why I wrote the book now, and Hunter Lippman wonders how long it takes to write a book. I can answer those all at the same time. So this is my first picture book. This is like baby's first picture book here with the others. And I learned a lot in the writing of it. So I teach at this grad program in writing for children. I had only written novels before, but I would attend workshops and lectures at Hamlin about writing picture books. And we had some amazing faculty members who sort of unpacked the art form to me. And I was really struck by the complexity of a picture book. It's like a poem in that you have very few words to get a whole lot of meaning and feeling and images out there. So you can, Lulu and the Others is about 600, 700 words, which is like, when I turned in the manuscript, it's like a 3-page manuscript. So it's, you have to really sort of figure out a way to be so economical with your language. The other thing I love about a picture book is it's the only kind of book where the page turns are all planned. So that moment where when we were reading it together, when I would get to the bottom of a page and you, the audience, didn't know what the next page was going to be, that's an amazing moment of sort of tension and of feeling like, ooh, I wonder what's next. And that's all planned in there because the art dictates the pace at which the book goes. Whereas if you read a novel, you don't know which word's going to be at the bottom of page 200. That's like the printer and the formatter figures that all out, and it's not planned what's on where each page stops. And so it just added a lot to the form and changed, so that one spread where she's like, what? I'm supposed to play with these? That was such an emotional shift from the previous page, right? The AG4 was able to do the close-up, the amazing close-up on the bonobo's
Oh,
face.
incredible. Yeah.
But that's all, this is something you have to think deliberately about writing a picture book, that no other book form really does that. So it's similar to how poets will like add white space to like change the pacing of a book. It's very close, much closer to that form in a way than general prose writing. But I wrote Lulu and the Others back in 2020. And we lined up A.G. Ford, but he's very much in demand as an artist, as he should be. And so it took us quite a few years to get everything together and get the book to come out. So it had a long journey of about 6 years to finally be in the form that you see in front of you now. Can we answer a couple other kid questions, Ariel?
Yeah.
We also have one in the live chat, so we'll do another question from the live chat that was submitted. But kid question first. Mrs. Ops, 4th grade class, wonders, why are bonobos so playful? And what do you think? Why are bonobos so playful?
I mean, gosh, that's hard to answer. Why are like some humans more playful than others? I'll go back to, I have my own beliefs around some of the connections between these things, but I think that when you are raised in an environment where there's love and connection, it's easier to play and be yourself and have fun. Adult bonobos, some people have called them the Peter Pan ape, because bonobos play for their whole lives. They don't stop playing. And there's plenty of humans like this too, right? I mean, we all know people who just have fun and play, whether that's, skiing for fun or, just like when they go to the playground with their kids, they're going down the slide with them and, really engaging in play. We know plenty of humans that act this way too, but in the bonobo world, they pretty much all play for the rest of their lives. And I don't know that we know for sure why, but I can say that like there are a lot of things about the way bonobos are in the world that seem to be related to the fact that they grow up with a lot of physical touch and kindness and empathy, and no one gets to hurt anyone else. And that probably lends itself to feeling more open and free. Yeah.
I was struck at the sanctuary with how much the bonobos, not just the young ones, but the adults too, will play. And often it's wrestling. Like they love to wrestle.
Love to wrestle.
And it made me think of like sleepovers when I was a kid. Like we would love to wrestle too, right? And there's this feeling of like it's like a little bit daring because you're like sort of fighting, but it's play fighting, and you both have to be on the same page and trust each other that you're not going to hurt each other. And you're sort of like testing that limit. You're testing the limits of your own strength. And there's this feeling. So there's this hormone that all mammals produce. It's called oxytocin, and it is called the bonding hormone. And any like positive touch where it feels like a sense of closeness, like wrestling and most play, produces this hormone in your brain, which makes you feel close to whoever has helped produce that feeling. So I think a lot of this play activity is about establishing these friendships and this feeling of closeness together, because they actually literally do feel closer because of the way the brains work by doing it. So it's not just like wasted time. It's like practicing skills they'll need later, and also like developing their alliances and friendships within the group.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and I want to make sure I mention this because I just want to make sure I mention it before we run out of time. We have live cameras going up at Lily Bonobo. They're going to be live pretty soon. And one of them is going to be on the play area of the nursery. So people will be able to watch baby bonobos in real time doing exactly what we're talking about, playing on the jungle gym in the nursery. And if you want to get updates on that, you'll have to, sign up for our newsletter or follow us on socials or something.
I would love to watch those cameras all day in my background. That's amazing.
You can click on a subscribe button. Yeah, I'm being told. Yeah.
Wendy Denham is wondering if any research is done at the sanctuaries and if there's ever poachers that threaten the sanctuary itself. I can answer that first question about research. I actually met a few researchers while I was there. One was Xana Clay, who's gone on to write many, many academic articles about bonobos and chimps and other primates. And she was there studying sharing in bonobos. And there was actually another scholar who was Japanese, I forget his name at the moment, but he was also studying sharing, because it's actually something that makes bonobos pretty distinct from most other apes, is the degree to which they are willing to share with each other. So the sanctuary is a wonderful place for science to happen because it's a slightly more controlled environment than the wild. And so you can bring sanctuary bonobos into a room that's set up to be a sort of way to see the ways that they behave. And I remember one of the experiments, Vanessa Woods writes about it in her book, Bonobo Handshake, that the two bonobos one had access to a food source and the option to open a gate that would let the other bonobo in to share the food source. And if you look at a chimp, they will eat the food and not give it to their friend for the most part. But a bonobo, 9 times out of 10 will open that gate to let their friend get half the food, even if it means that they're getting less. So there's a lot of wonderful science being done at the sanctuary, and it'll be hard to conduct that. You can't conduct that experiment on wild bonobos. It's not ethical. So it's like a good way to sort of help us understand our closest relatives.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of research being done. We also have some research. We also do research around people and their understanding of bonobos and conservation. So what happens when they come in, what's the difference in understanding of conservation before and after they participate in an education program, for example, at the sanctuary. The second part of the question about poachers, no, we do not have to worry about poachers at Lola. Poachers are out in the forest in areas where there are no people. We also have the sanctuary is either fully fenced or there's a river that goes around part of it. We have guards at all times, et cetera. So the sanctuary is incredibly safe. It's also well loved by the community and everyone around it. So we would be warned, et cetera, if there was any danger well in advance.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what I witnessed when I was there too. And the sanctuary is closer to the capital Kinshasa than the release site because it needs a lot of infrastructure and the surrogate mothers have to have a place to live, every night before they come in to work the best job in the world, which is to be a surrogate mother for bonobos. Yeah. So we need, and
the hardest job in the world, I think, or yes. One of.
Yes. And you're inviting the greatest joys and the lowest lows at the same time, trying to help these apes. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Ariel, this has been amazing. We're almost at time, so I just want to wind things down. We didn't get a chance to get to everyone's questions, but hopefully you will continue to research bonobos and learn about them. I want to thank you all from the youngest to the oldest in our audience for coming to talk about these absolutely amazing apes that I hope you spread the word that the bonobos will become better known in the future as we move forward. And just remember this key takeaway that, our closest relatives prove that empathy and cooperation matter, that it matters who we're close to and who we care for. And it's how we succeed. And the bonobos are a great model that relying on each other in our friendships and our families are really crucial to being happy and healthy and surviving. So I hope you're inspired to care about conservation from here on forward.
Yeah, and I want to thank you so much, Eliot, for doing this with us and for reading your book to everyone. What an incredibly lovely experience to have you read the book to us. I hope everyone can go out and get a copy for yourself, for your friends, anybody that has, for people with grandkids, et cetera. Let's see. I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to answer some of the questions we didn't answer. So we will make sure to post some answers on our social media platforms, and we'll post them and we'll send some. And we'll put it in a Q&A on social media, and we'll send it to our listserv. So a great opportunity to get those will be to subscribe to our listserv and or follow us on socials. Yeah. You can support the bonobo conservation work by going to savebonobos.org, and want to also mention that Saturday is World Bonobo Day, also known as Valentine's Day. That was intentional. The day of love, right?
Yes.
I just want to make sure that you can see here from the links, you've got lots of different ways you can participate. Make sure you go out and buy the book. And that was so much fun. That was just such a great time.
So this came up in one of the questions we didn't answer, but if people want to go out and see a real bonobo in the United States on World Bonobo Day, like what zoo populations exist? I know there's San Diego has bonobos. What else?
That's right. Columbus Zoo, Cincinnati Zoo, Jacksonville Zoo, Memphis Zoo. In the UK, there's Twycross, and there's a few other in Europe as well. And we'll post a list.
Awesome.
We'll post some lists so everyone knows where to go.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone for joining me. As an author, it can be a little bit, sort of lonely launching a book out in the world. It's just you and the book, and I really feel it's been so wonderful to get to talk with you, Ariel, and to be partnering with Friends of Bonobos about this shared work that we're all doing to spread the word about this absolutely magnificent ape. So I really appreciate your waking up super early in New Zealand to come join us. Although maybe you can go jump in that beautiful water in the.
Oh, I will.
Just remember you can subscribe to the Friends of Bonobos newsletter, and that there's a signed book giveaway, which there's information about that at the bottom of your screen. SaveBonobos.org.
And Eliot, thanks for including us in your journey. We at Friends of Bonobos have been so excited to be part of your book launch and to get to see the copy as it was coming out. Oh, it's just really exciting.
Well, we should do a series where there's like one book for every bonobo in the sanctuary. We'll tell all their stories. That'll be great.
Okay, you're on.
All right. Thank you for coming, everybody, and thanks again, Ariel.
Thank you. Thanks,
Have
everybody.
a great day. Thank
Bye.
You.